Welcome to Oneness and Wellness. I'm here with Marsha Reddington-Lawton and Lorraine Goldblum again with the Vortex Healing.
We're
so
back.
You're really lucky, viewing audience. So in the past we've done shame and fear and money, and those are just some of them. So today we're going to start with jealousy.
Jealousy. Yes.
So welcome, Lorraine.
Thank
it's really
you.
nice to have you back again. And of course, my partner there, Marsha. It's good to see you, Marsha.
Wonderful to see you.
And we have two ladies that are helping from the audience, so we're thankful that you're here.
Thank you so much to have you.
And you can maybe add to our program today, for sure. You already have.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with jealousy, but I really would like you, Lorraine, to start with talking about what is an issue.
Yeah. What are we
Okay?
doing? What are
Yeah.
we doing? But thank you. Thank you for having me back and for coming back. And it's great to have you. And we coordinated our outfits. Isn't this nice that we did this?
You must be psychic.
Yes. Well, we're finding the groove of the series. And what we're doing is we're doing something called the Issue Series. All right. And the Issue Series came about because I teach something called Vortex Healing.
Right.
And Vortex Healing is a healing modality. But it's also about awakening. And when I talk about vortex healing, I talk about the nature of it and how it works. But I always offer a healing on a particular issue, a particular subject, because I find that that is how people relate to healing, is where and how it meets them with what they struggle with. And what we struggle with is our issues.
Absolutely.
You know, when I start talking to people about what it means to them, a natural sharing opens up, and I've really struggled with this issue, that issue. And so I thought, how wonderful would it be to just do work about issues? And so as I define an issue, and what that means is my definition of an issue is that it's anything that keeps you out of being present. All right? An issue is something that distracts you. It distracts you on an emotional level. It distracts you on a physical level. It keeps you in an experience of yourself, a very personal experience, and it keeps you out of being present with who you're talking to, the world around you, the truth of what's going on. So with Vortex Healing, for a healing modality to be effective, it can't just address an issue on how it shows up in the body, or the chakra system, or the energy pathways. It has to address the consciousness of an issue. So for example, an issue we talked about was anxiety. We did an episode or two actually on anxiety. We talked about how it's not just an emotional issue, it's physical as well.
Right.
So a healing modality needs to address the physicality of it and how it creates tension and holds in the heart. But that emotional, psychological consciousness aspect, the thing that says, I am anxious, that has to be met. So an issue keeps you out of the moment on a consciousness level as well as a physical level. So healing, Vortex Healing, to be effective, addresses all of that. And so when I offer healings, we usually target specific issues because it's how people relate to that. And so what we've developed in this series is just every time we get together, we talk about different issues and try to provide a context for what they are, bring awareness into them, see them for what they are, and then that opens the door for space and for healing.
Would you take a moment and describe what it means to awaken from an issue?
Awaken from an issue, that's a great question. It means realizing that that's not the truth of what you are. The difference between I have something going on, but that's not what I really am. To let it go. And to awaken from an issue means to allow yourself the freedom to be present.
I love that word, freedom.
Yeah, and that's what it is. Our issues keep us in separation.
And one of the things that I really like, because it's the wording of it, when say, I am anxious. No, I am experiencing anxiety.
Exactly.
Two different ways of looking at that. And I think that makes a really big difference.
Right. The nature of issues is that they keep us separate from each other. But I'm finding and really enjoying the fact that when we talk about them, it can bring us back together. if we're willing to put it on the table and share our own personal experience of what it means to be anxious or experience shame or all that I find that people are coming together in this shared experience, and then we provide support for each other for letting it go and finding the freedom.
So we're talking about jealousy
We're talking
today.
about jealousy, yeah.
So in our prior, before we came into the show, we were
Yeah.
talking as a group, and we were talking about, and one of the women brought up the fact that, we were talking about benign,
Yeah.
and then we were talking about malicious
Yeah.
jealousy. So let's tell our viewing audience the difference between those two kinds of jealousy.
Yeah. When I was talking, I had dinner with a friend of mine. We were talking about what issues, that would be interesting to do. And she said, oh, you have to do jealousy. And I said, ooh, that's interesting. Why that? She said, it's so much fun. It's so interesting. And the reason is that it can lead to all sorts of creative behavior about how we deal with that issue. So on two levels, and in doing the research for the show, yes, I've come across, different ways of talking about jealousy. There's kind of a benign version of it, or benign envy is the technical term, which is really more like an admiration. It's really you see someone that you admire. They have a quality that you might feel you might be in lack of. You want to get closer to them. You want to know how they did it. You want to run in that circle. It doesn't necessarily lead to problems. It's just a recognition in yourself that there's something there that you admire.
Right.
It does come from lack, and that's why, the jealousy thing. But when it turns malicious, as soon as something turns malicious, which is usually what we end up talking about, is there's an injustice to it. That person shouldn't be getting that. Why are they getting that and not me? There's that kind of that's not fair.
Exactly.
And another language that I've heard the difference between jealousy and envy, whereas jealousy is, I want to have what someone else has. Envy is more, I want to be that person because I don't feel, and so you can feel the in that. And then that's where, when you read all the novels and you watch the television shows, the villains are very often driven by this kind of jealousy, envy.
Right. I think we're fed that.
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of the television shows, but I know I see enough of it to know that what it is. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think people who watch that constantly,
Yeah.
they're faced with jealousy all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not faced with an alternative. Oh, well, how do you
Yeah.
heal from that?
Right.
Is this just, something that we all have, which we probably all do have?
Yeah.
But how do you move into a place that you feel good about it?
Right.
That you're not overwhelmed by it. You're not
Right.
overtaken by it, controlled by that jealousy.
Right.
Which is really very destructive.
It's very destructive. It can be. How one turns it is recognizing that, it's really about you. It's never about the other person or their situation. It's always, isn't that true with all of our
Everything.
issues?
Yep.
And
Everything.
it comes back to you. But it's a hard issue to avoid these days because social media and television, it's everywhere. And so a lot of what's happening is people are projecting these versions of themselves that are polished and perfect, and we're even losing a sense of what life is like. I mean, jealousy is not new. It goes back,
no.
but it gets colored by the times that you live in and the crowd that you run with. I think jealousy is more primal than we think because it has to do with where our status is in life.
That's interesting.
Where, money or job or, social standing, these can be life or death situations.
Right. And I think a lot of times when we think about jealousy, we think, well, that's only women. Women are jealous. But,
yeah.
Then think in terms of what you just mentioned, power, job, being left out. That's male. So it's a female, male, both genders.
Yeah,
are
and they
affected
express
by
it
jealousy.
very, very differently. You know, we were talking before we met about gossip. You know, and gossip is kind of a malicious expression of jealousy, envy, and why gossip can be so addictive, and gossiping can be addictive, is because it makes the gossiper feel better about themselves. You know, it gossip and jealousy craves information and story and details, and oh, this is what she's doing and that's what's happening, and da, 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 da. And then you can sit back and you can comment on it and take a position of power when
Well,
you
it's not just
judge
women.
Power and control.
power and control.
I think there are a lot of men who are very good gossipers, if you can say that. But I mean,
Yeah.
they gossip a lot, and you know, somehow women get the bad rap about gossiping. But men are really, and there are more. You know, not all men, but
No, of
I've
course,
met a
yeah.
few that are really,
Talented in that area.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, I think it's something for us all to pay attention to.
Well,
You know?
I don't think anyone is immune to jealousy. It doesn't mean we have to behave badly.
Right.
But it can be very useful. I know if we're going to talk about jealousy, you know, I should share a story.
Oh, absolutely.
And of course, we
Stories
have
are
to go
good,
back
our
to
viewing
high school.
audience always says.
If we're going to talk about jealousy, but then, you know, I have to go back to, you know, high school, you know, middle school, which are the formative years, you know.
But those are good years, because I think the jealousy that has, you know, kind of is connected with social media.
Yeah.
And these young people, and they're dealing with jealousy that leads to sometimes very negative situations. So
It can.
tell your
It
story.
can. But you know, there was my high school, as many are, was very cliquey. You know, and you had different cliques, you had different groups, and you had, of course, you had the popular girls, and they were all beautiful, and they had perfect feathered hair. This was when, you know, hair was feathered and sort of like the Hedwig kind of thing. And I that wasn't my crowd. I couldn't do that. And a lot of those girls I really didn't like. They were sort of superficial, and they were, you know, and there was just kind of this, we're better than you are. But the one that everyone kind of centered around, the most popular girl, her name was Suzanne, and she was a really nice person. She was a really nice person, and I admired her. And I remember wanting to try to just sort of get close to her, to be in her buzz zone. And she was always very nice to me. We weren't friends because I couldn't run with that crowd. I just didn't have what it took. But I remember noting the difference between this really nice person who I admired and I was jealous, and the crowd that surrounded her that were more, and they were far more protective of the social standing, and they were quick to put others down and all of that. But she wasn't, and I could sort of feel, you know, that admiration of just wanting to be like her, and taking the opportunity to reflect back onto myself where I didn't feel like I could be like her. I didn't have the tools at that time to really do anything with it. It just sort of spiraled into feeling bad about myself. But, you know, there's a difference between that vicious kind of jealousy and that, you know, that's really very beautiful. And we were talking before the show how that kind of admiration can pull people together. Sometimes that's a foundation for what can become a very genuine friendship.
Right. I think that's a good story. I think, you know, and trying to think about the young people today, because I think, you know, they're so affected by social media. Not to say that you didn't have it when you were a teenager, but what's today is just over the top. You know, they're inundated with social media.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it gets to be because of the lack within themselves.
Yeah.
You know, not having that, and then projecting, this other person, well, I never can be like that, or, you know, then
Right.
it really, it spirals downward.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, you know, you saw the good side, that kind of benign envy, I think you said, so that you could learn from that situation. You could maybe you know, be able to come through that and find some things within yourself that were like her, so
Right.
that you could maybe be more like her.
Right.
But it's a funny thing, because
Yeah.
I kind of think that the kids today, the young people today, are so affected by television
Right.
and by the stars, you know, wow, these stars and who they are and what they do, and I think it all affects their self-image, their self-esteem, their you know, all of it. I think it's a really difficult time for young people today.
It's a different world.
It's a very
And
different
whatever
world.
you're doing it publicly.
So it's much bigger.
It's much bigger. The stakes are much higher. So, you know, and all of this, all of the issues do come back to kind of a self-worth and feeling, you know, not so good about yourself in a particular way. Jealousy is an expression of that. So a lot of what we do in social media, it seems, is to compensate for where we feel in lack and project this image of a more perfect version of ourselves.
Exactly.
And then that's what everyone is comparing themselves to, is this image, which is not even really
Not
real.
real.
It's been polished and, you know, perfected. And that's why, you know, social media seems to come up in every issue that we talk about, because it's a way that people manage
Feelings and
feelings
issues
and
all of it.
communication and all of
Right.
that. It sort of complicates everything. The pain is the same, but the environment does
So
change.
vortex healing. So how does vortex healing transfer that jealousy so that a person becomes more conscious
Yeah.
of who they are and better way of living? And
Well, vortex healing works with consciousness, not just with energy. So it goes into any issue that keeps you in separation. You know, any place where that is experienced as separateness, that divine consciousness meets you there. That is the healing. You know, we think of a healing as just sort of feeling better, and it is, and that's very important. But that place that feels in lack, that place that feels that it's not whole, that place that's not able to be present, that's where the consciousness element of it meets. So when I do healings, you know, we'll target the issue of jealousy. We bring in the energy that addresses the conditioning, how it shows up in the body and the energy system, and then that consciousness component to meet that thing, that part of you that believes that you're less than,
Right.
and allows it to let go of that story so that it can just be. And that's really the awakening part of it.
Can you talk a little bit more about what it's like to be without an issue? I have
Yeah.
this issue, and I don't really have this issue right now. I've
Yeah.
awakened from that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's really a kind of peace, because our issues are so noisy, they're so distracting. They generate story and action and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If one could really just let that go and just be present.
So no competition, no judgment,
Yeah.
just peace.
Just peace, but not a peace as in just quiet peace, as in a natural sharing and expression and flow and play and enjoyment and recognition of grace. You know, our jealousy and our issues keep us out of that.
Exactly.
But if we're more present, we can actually enjoy each other, ourselves more, the moment more.
Right, and we talked about, you know, in that whole, I don't know if you want to say recovery process, you know, coming out of that, is self-love. Is, you know,
Absolutely,
being
yeah.
able to love yourself. And then if you're not able, if you don't have that to be able to, you know, love yourself,
Yeah.
then looking to a guardian, a creator,
Yeah.
an angel, a God, whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
someone else, something else that will bring you out of that and bring you back to loving yourself.
That's right. And jealousy is a great example of an issue, because it's always about how you are in relation to someone or something else, right? There's a duality that's in the mix. You know, you're comparing yourself in some way to someone else and you come up short. which is where judgments come in.
Right.
You know,
We judge
what we do
ourselves.
is we sort of target someone who has our issue
Absolutely.
and handling it not as well as we are, so we can pass judgment about that.
Right.
And that's where judgments come from. It's a
So
recognition.
they're all connected, right?
They're all connected. And,
Well,
yeah.
you know, we're coming. I want to make sure that you tell our viewing audience how they can contact you, and we're going to be doing more programs today, but so that they will be able to get in touch with you. So if you would do that, please, Lorraine.
Thank you. Yes, I am Lorraine Goldblum, and my website is lorrainegoldblum.com. So you can see more about the issue series and events that I have coming up. As the issue experiences itself in many different ways. And I'm doing a workshop this summer, June 3rd through 7th, about the issue series, Our Karma and Our Journey, Transforming Universal Issues. You can register for that at eomega.org. I'm very excited about it.
Oh, that's wonderful, Lorraine.
Thank
well,
you.
that's so helpful for people because we all have issues.
Yeah.
And to be able to come back to our inner core,
Yeah.
to our true self, and not have to live with, and we're talking about jealousy, not to live with being jealous of someone else. You know, wished I was like her,
Right.
I wished I had what they have, you know, whether it's money or house or
Whatever it is.
car or whatever it is, you know, and I hear people say that, you know, why are we not content with what we have?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, why are we not satisfied with who we are?
It always comes back to us.
Right.
What I'd like to say about us is that not only are you a really blessed teacher, very effective teacher, but this is an investment. This is not only in a nice environment with a great teacher, but this is a gift that we give ourselves. This gift of freedom. And doing this piece of work translates much. So I just want to say, if you're interested in investing in you, this is one of the places you might want to consider it. It's a lovely environment, wonderful master teacher, and a gift
Yeah.
to you.
We're going to do a lot of healing in that class. We're going to target issues and just offer that
Well,
kind of
healing. I mean, that's, I know from my own life, that healing is important. If, you know, if we don't heal, we don't grow.
Right.
We don't become the person we want to be.
Yeah.
You know, so that's, you know, there has to be healing in our lives.
Yeah.
That's primary foundation. So that's wonderful, the work that you're doing, Lorraine.
Thank you
And of course,
so
I know
much.
that Marcia does that work also. So, yeah, that's great. So jealousy, so we'll add that to the issues.
We are adding that to the issues, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And the difference between benign jealousy and malicious jealousy.
Yeah.
That was new for me. So thank you for making that distinction for me. So I think if we're going to go on and we're going to talk a little bit more about
Heartbreak.
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 That will be the next issue that we talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
So you want to say anything in saying, closing off the session today? Do you want to say anything? A quote?
Ooh,
A word?
a word. I want to say thank you. That's what I want to say.
Okay.
I want to say thank
Gratitude.
you for, you know, having us and providing a format for an opportunity to share this experience. I think that's where the healing is, when we recognize whatever we're doing, we're not alone in it. And then that gives us the courage and the space to move forward in whatever we're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.